Hello everybody, my name is Spy. Today we'll be going through not only picking your race, but picking your class as well. Learning what classes are good at what races are good at what, as well as helping you determine a weapon and armor for your character. In Elder Scrolls Online, it is important to play what you want to play. Your class, your race, and your main resource are all determined by what you want. However, I am here to help you determine what may be a more optimal build, or at least help you determine what may be more useful for you and your group if you plan to play with a party or even solo. The first race in the Daggerfall Covenant is the Bretons, followed by the Orcs and the Red Guards. The next faction is the Aldemari Dominion, the first race being the High Elves, then the Wood Elves, followed by the Khajiit. Next is the Ebonheart Pact, with the Argonians, the Dark Elves, and the Nords. There is another race, it is the Imperials. It is a paid race. The race costs 1,500 crown coins, which is equivalent to around $15. When deciding your first character, or a new character, it is important to determine what race your character should be. In this photo, I have outlined one of the racials from each race. The racial I'm specifically singling out is the one that gives maximum stamina, magicka, or health to the character, your main resource. Bretons get a 2,000 increase to their magicka. Red Guards will get a 2,000 increase to their stamina. Orcs will gain 2,000 extra health as well as an extra 1,000 stamina. Dark Elves will gain 2,000 of both magicka and stamina. Argonians will gain an extra 1,000 health. Nords will gain 1,000 stamina and 2,000 health. High Elves will also gain 2,000 extra to their max magicka. Khajiit will gain 900 of each stat. And Wood Elves will gain a 2,000 to their stamina. I will point out once more that this is just one of the racials that each of these carry. The difference between a High Elf and a Breton is very minor, however, it can be seen on many classes. It is important to take note of the kind of racials your character will be built for. I think it is important to play whichever race you like best. Optimization may not be the most important thing to you. However, if you want to have more stamina, health, or magicka for a role you want to play, it is important to know which race can deliver the maximum stat for your character. Your racial will not lock you out of a certain playstyle. However, it may make it more difficult for you to play what you want to play. If you want to be a spellcaster, it may be more difficult to do that on a Red Guard than it would be on a Breton. Next we have the classes. Our first class is the Dragon Knight. These skillful Master-at-Arms use ancient Akaviri martial arts, tradition of battle spirit, and fearsome magic that pounds, shatters, and physically alters the world around them. Sorcerers can use the conjuration and destruction spells to hurl lightning bolts and create shock fields, wield dark magic to snare and stun, and summon Daedric combat followers from Oblivion to assist them. The Nightblades. Nightblades are adventurers and opportunists, with a gift for getting in and out of trouble. Relying on various stealth, blades, and speed, Nightblades thrive on conflict and misfortune, trusting their luck and cunning to survive. The Templar call upon the powers of the light and burning sun to deal massive damage to their enemies while restoring health to their allies. Wardens are defenders of green, master storytellers, those nature tales become magical reality. They wield frost spells against enemies and summon animals to aid them. The Necromancers are masters of death. Necromancers can call upon corpses to serve as undead thralls and weave ghastly spells to both harm and heal. A warning: Necromancer abilities in towns are criminal acts. Citizens and guards will react accordingly. Now I'd like to talk about the classes. What I have outlined to the right here is healer, damage, and tank roles. I'd like to firstly go ahead and say that while a Dragon Knight is not on the healer roster, it can be a formidable healer. These are just the classes that perform the best at each roles. Not always will this be the best way to play your character. A healer Nightblade may not be the most optimal. However, they do have a class tree that will provide you with healing abilities. What I was looking for whenever I made this T-chart was which classes had a skill tree with abilities and passives meant for healing. Dragon Knights do not, however they can provide healing. Every class is capable of playing every role. These are just the classes, not in order, which can do the roles more successfully. The Necromancer has a dedicated healer, tank, and damage role that can perform admirably in all three. The Necromancer also has multiple morphs of its abilities that can be utilized for stamina. The Dragon Knight. The Dragon Knight is next on the list, and it can perform any role as stated before. However, its damage and tanking potential are more so than its healing potential, and for that it does very good at both. The class has very many morphs of both stamina and magicka, and can provide a very large amount of buffs to both itself and the party. The Nightblade is next on the list, and the Nightblade is a very utilization heavy class. Most of its functionality is for itself, however, it can survive and push through almost any obstacle within its way. The Sorcerer is another damage and tank class that performs most well in DPS. They bring a very large variety of AoE and single target attacks that are sure to destroy your enemies. The Templar is next, and the Templar has all three dedicated roles. The Templar's healing tree provides the party with a large abundance of resistances as well as purifications from any negative effects, as well as packing very potent heals. The Templar's damage spec is also very new player friendly. The Warden once again can do all three roles. It has dedicated skill trees for all three. Its healing is focused more on overtime healing, as well as having buffs like lifesteal, as well as providing recovery buffs. The damage spec of the Warden is my personal favorite, and while its effects may take some time to get used to, it can deliver a very forceful smack. Its tanking tree is focused completely around mana, and will do best with a Frost Staff equipped, seeing as all of its abilities are based around the Frost magic type. Talking about weapons, as you can see, the two-handed skill tree is made up of all stamina abilities. Showing the Restoration Staff skill tree, you can see it also has an ultimate ability. The active abilities of the Restoration skill tree are all magicka abilities. Going into the passives here, you can see some passives in the skill tree, such as Essence Drain, will grant you Major Mending for 2 seconds after completing a fully charged heavy attack. This will increase your healing done by 16%, and heal yourself or an ally within 12 meters for 25% of the damage done. Dual Wielding has things such as granting a bonus based on the type of weapon you have equipped. Each axe will increase your critical damage done by 3% on the first rank. Each mace will also increase your armor penetration by 825. Each sword will increase your weapon and spell damage by 71, and each dagger will increase your critical chance rating by 405. To show off the max rank, I will be using the two-handed skill tree, which does the exact same thing to show the same effect. This has a passive ability that will grant you bonuses based on the weapon you have equipped. Swords will increase your weapon and spell damage by 284. Axes will increase your critical damage done by 12%. And maces will increase your armor penetration by 3,300. Picking class is very important, seeing as many of your active abilities as well as ultimates and passives will be tied to your class. Taking a deeper look at the Warden class here, the main ultimate of the Animal Companions tree, the Damage tree, is a pet bear that will follow you around. Secluded Grove will instantly heal 7,000 and continue to heal all allies for 3,000 health every 1 second. Winter's Embrace has an ultimate that will have you twist a violent storm around you, dealing 4,000 frost damage every second for 8 seconds, and snaring your enemies by 40%, reducing their movement speed. Cutting Dive is another Warden ability that, while 7 meters away, will set off balance, and will apply a bleed. It also does bleed damage. Green Balance has abilities such as Enchanted Grove, which will have you seed a large area of mushrooms, healing for 5,000, and granting minor intellect and endurance, increasing your mana and stamina recovery by 15%. Expansive Frost Cloak will wrap a thick cloak of ice around you and your allies, and grant Major Resolve, increasing your physical and spell resistance by 6,000. Moving into the passives of the Winter's Embrace skill tree, you can see you have a 200% increased chance to apply Chilled status effect. Enemies who have been chilled take 10% extra critical damage from you. Passives in the green balance may do things like increasing your healing done with green balance abilities by 2% for each green balance ability slotted. Looking at the animal companion skill tree, we have such things as, anytime one of your animal companion skills end, you will be healed for 1000 health. You can use any weapon on any build. Weapons, however, do lean towards either stamina or magicka, and this is quite a dramatic shift, depending on your dominant resource, the one you want to use the most for your skills and abilities. You may want to pick a staff or weapon that will help complement that playstyle. In the stamina category here, we have dual weapons, which can be used in any configuration you want. You can have daggers, swords, axes, or maces. In the two-handed weapons, we have greatswords, war axes, or mauls. Bows are also a stamina weapon, as well as one-handed and shield, which is daggers, swords, maces, and axes again. On the magic side, we have the elemental staves, such as fire, frost, and shock, as well as the restoration staff. The divide in stamina and magicka just relies on the weapon's abilities and not the use of the weapon itself. Frost staves do have the ability to block using magicka instead of stamina, a skill unique to only that kind of staff. Many magicka builds will utilize daggers for their increased critical chance, which may be more beneficial to you as a magical caster than anything else here due to the fact that magicka crit is a bit more difficult to come across. When it comes to one-handed and shield, that is used across both magicka and stamina classes, but it is in the stamina tree because of all of its abilities utilizing stamina and not magicka. However, it is the go-to weapon of most tanks. Swords and greatswords also have a passive within their own respective trees that will increase your weapon and spell damage. Axes and war axes, on the other hand, will increase the damage your critical strikes do. And for mauls and maces, they will increase your penetration through armor rating, a very useful skill for a DPSer. Fire gains the added benefit of extra damage, while shock will increase your damage of area attack effects. Restoration staves can also generate the most mana whenever using your heavy attack. Looking into the destruction staff here, Trifocus will increase the fully charged heavy attacks of our Inferno staves by 12%, lightning heavy attacks will deal damage to nearby enemies for 100% of it, fully charged ice staves will grant us a damage shield, as well as allowing us to block with mana. We also have things such as Arcane Knowledge, which will increase our damage done with single target abilities by 10% with an Inferno staff, lightning staves will increase our area of effect damage by 10%, and equipping an ice staff will reduce the cost of blocking by 36%. Using my Templar here, I would like to go through and show you the differences between classes. Looking at things in the Restoring Light skill tree, we have passives such as Mending, increasing the healing effects from your Restoration Light abilities by up to 12% in proportion to the severity of the target's wounds. We also have abilities such as Channeled Focus, which will create a rune, increasing your physical and spell resistance by 6,000, recovering 250 magicka every second, and standing in the rune will also heal us for 1,100 health every second. This also costs mana. We have active abilities in the Dawn's Wrath skill tree such as Reflective Light, which will shoot out 2 flames, which will do a damage over time, as well as granting you Major Prophecy, which will increase your spell critical rating by 2,700. And passives such as Illuminate. Casting a Dawn's Wrath ability will grant you Minor Sorcery to you and your group for 20 seconds, increasing your spell damage done by 10%. Aedric Spear, however, has abilities such as Puncturing Sweep, which will do about 3,000 magic damage to the closest enemy, and about 1/3 of that damage to all other enemies in front of you. This will also reduce the movement speed by 40% and heal you for 40% of it done. Passive abilities in this tree will also increase your weapon and spell damage by 6% and grant you 1,320 physical and spell resistance. I feel it's very important to go through armor very quickly. Armor has 3 categories: light, heavy, and medium. They all have active abilities, The active ability in the light armor skill tree is Annulment, which will grant us a damage shield protecting us against about 8,000 damage for 6 seconds, and it is capped at around 50% of your maximum health. The active ability of medium armor is Evasion, which will reduce damage from area attacks by 20% for 17 seconds. Unstoppable in the heavy armor skill tree will intensify our physical presence and grant us Major Resolve, increasing our physical and spell resistance by 6,000, and grant us immunity to knockback and disabling effects for 6 seconds, but reduce our movement speed by 65% for the duration. Armor also comes with bonuses and penalties. Heavy armor bonuses include things such as reducing damage taken by martial attacks by 1%, increasing our damage blocked by 1%, increasing the damage done with bash by 3%, and reducing our damage taken while crowd control by 1%. Heavy armor penalties increase our damage taken by magical attacks by 1%, reduce our movement speed of sprint by 1%, increase the cost of dodge roll by 3%, and increase the size of detection radius while sneaking by 10%. We have passives such as Resolve, which will increase our physical and spell resistance by 343 for each piece of heavy armor equipped, and Rapid Mending, increasing our healing received by 1% for each piece of heavy armor equipped. Medium armor has bonuses but no penalties. It will reduce the cost of sprint by 1%, reduces the cost of sneak by 5%, reduce the cost of block by 3%, reduces our damage taken by area of effects by 2%, and increase the movement speed of 2% while immune to crowd control. Windwalker is a passive in the skill tree that will increase our stamina recovery by 2% for each piece worn, and reduce the cost of our abilities by 1% for each piece of medium armor equipped, as well as things like Dexterity, increasing our critical damage and healing by 1% for every 2 pieces worn of medium armor. Light armor bonuses include things such as reducing our damage taken by magical attacks by 1%, reducing the cost of dodge roll by 3%, and reducing our movement speed penalty of sneak by 5%, reducing the cost of break free by 5%, and reduce the cost of bash by 3%. Light armor penalties include things such as taking increased damage by martial attacks by 1%, increasing our cost of block by 3%, and decreasing the damage done with bash by 1%. They have such passives such as Magicka Recovery increased by 4% for each piece of light armor equipped, and reduce the cost of your Magicka abilities by 2% for each piece worn, as well as Consecration, which will increase our physical and spell penetration by 939 for each piece of light armor worn.